This is Old America Journal, and today we're going back to a moment every man over 60 either remembers or wishes he did. A boy, a father, a knife passing from one hand to another without ceremony, without wrapping paper, without a card. Just the weight of it landing in the boy's palm and the understanding, unspoken, complete, that something had just changed. By the time we reach the last knife, you'll understand why that moment, a blade in an open hand, a look exchanged, nothing said, was one of the most American things that ever happened in this country, and why we were so careless about letting it go. 6 knives, 6 different ways that fathers answered the same question, when is he ready, and handed something down that lasted longer than most of the things money can buy. Number 1. The Buck 110 Folding Hunter. Hoyt Buck learned to work steel as a 13-year-old blacksmith's apprentice in Kansas in 1902. He watched metal shift in a forge, red to orange to a particular straw yellow that meant the steel was ready, and carried that knowledge in his hands for the next 4 decades. His son Al started the company in a 10 by 12-foot addition to a garage in San Diego in 1947. The Buck 110 arrived in 1964. Heavy brass bolsters, walnut handle, a lockback that clicked shut with a sound that meant this blade means business. Within 5 years, it was the best-selling folding knife in America. In 2003, C.J. Buck, 4th generation, called his employees together and told them the truth. The company was moving to Post Falls, Idaho. More than 150 workers would not be coming. The factory was loaded onto 50 trucks and driven 1,400 miles north. Buck still makes the 110 in Post Falls. The lifetime warranty still holds. Some things, if you fight hard enough for them, survive. The Buck 110 was the knife a father bought when he was ready to make a statement. The next knife was the one a father gave when the boy was still becoming. Number 2. The Barlow. The Barlow is the oldest American pocket knife pattern. George Washington carried one. For 300 years, the Barlow was the knife that started everything. The first blade a boy received before he was old enough for anything more serious. The design came from Sheffield in the 1600s and crossed the Atlantic with the colonists. Its signature was an elongated bolster that covered nearly half the handle, giving extraordinary strength exactly where lesser knives failed. One blade, a teardrop handle that fit every hand, from a 10-year-old boy to a 60-year-old farmer. Russell, Case, and Schrade all made Barlows. In the 1950s, you could buy one for under $1. Fathers bought them without much deliberation. The deliberation came later, when they handed them over. A Barlow in a boy's pocket said someone decided you were ready for this. That was the whole message, and for a boy of 10, that message was everything. Some boys carried it for one summer before they lost it. Some carried it for 20 years. The knife did not know the difference. It was ready either way. The Barlow was where it started. The next knife was where the tradition became a ceremony. Number 3. The Case Trapper. Case & Sons has been making knives in Bradford, Pennsylvania since 1905. The Trapper, 2 blades, jigged bone handles the color of old ivory, became the knife that fathers handed to sons when the moment was right. Every case knife made since 1970 carries a date code stamped into the tang. A series of dots tell you exactly when it was made. You can hold a case trapper and know this knife was made in 1974. It was in someone's pocket when your father was a young man. That date code is not a technical detail. It is a coordinate, a fixed point in time you can hold in your hand. Case still makes the Trapper in Bradford, 120 years without moving. Pick up a case knife at an estate sale and look at the tang. 4 dots and a number. That is not a serial number. That is a year. That is the year your father was a specific age, living a specific life, in a country that felt a specific way. The knife remembers, even when the man who carried it is gone. The next knife was the knife of a different kind of American family. Before we continue, tell me in the comments, did your father or grandfather give you a knife? Which one, and how old were you? I read every single comment. Number 4, the Schrade Old Timer. The Old Timer was the knife in the pocket of the man who fixed things, the electrician, the farmer, the carpenter who needed a blade that would open boxes, cut rope, and be back in his pocket before anyone noticed. Imperial Schrade made the Old Timer in Ellenville, New York, a town of 4,000 people where the knife factory employed 1,200 workers, 3 generations of the same families, sons learning from fathers, learning from grandfathers. On July 29, 2004, Union President Walter Gardner sent a letter to the remaining workers. 1 page. The last day of work was July 30th. 250 people, 1 day's notice. The brands were sold at auction. Production moved to China. The Old Timer was passed down not with ceremony, but with expectation. Here is a tool. Use it. Take care of it. That was the whole speech. The next knife came home from somewhere far away. Number 5, the Camillus Cutlery Company. It opened in 1876 in upstate New York, and it ran for more than a century. They supplied knives to the United States military in every conflict from the Spanish-American War through Iraq and Afghanistan. If your father served in Korea, Vietnam, or World War II, there is a reasonable chance he carried a Camillus. The military knives came home in duffel bags and ended up in kitchen drawers and tackle boxes. Not displayed, not talked about, just there. When a father handed his son a Camillus, it sometimes came with a story and sometimes came with silence. The silence was its own communication. This knife was somewhere with me. Now it is with you. Camillus filed for bankruptcy in 2007, 131 years. The factory went quiet. The last knife on this list carried something different, a mystery that has never been fully explained. Number 6, the Remington Bullet knife. Between 1920 and 1940, Remington made pocket knives in Bridgeport, Connecticut that are still being passed down in American families today. The most famous was the R1173, called the Bullet, because the handle was shaped like a rifle cartridge, fitting the palm the way a good tool always fits. Then, in 1940, Remington stopped making knives to focus on wartime production. They never came back. 20 years of production, that was all. The knives that survive are found at estate sales, in dresser drawers, wrapped in cloth in boxes unopened for 30 years. They pass from father to son to grandson with less explanation each generation, until the story has been reduced to a grandfather's name and a guess about the decade. If you find one, buy it. You'll understand why the moment it's in your hand. 6 knives. The Buck, driven 1,400 miles north on 50 trucks. The Barlow that started 3 centuries of American boys. The case with the date code that tells you exactly when it was made. The Old Timer that ended with a 1-page letter. The Camillus that came home from a war. The Remington that existed for 20 years and has been passing through families ever since. None of them were expensive. None of them were remarkable in the way that remarkable things get written about. They were simply present, in pockets and drawers and tackle boxes and glove compartments for 100 years of American life. They opened more birthday presents than threats. They fixed more broken things than they ever broke. And every single one of them, at some point, passed from an older hand to a younger one with the same unspoken message: you are ready for this now. Tell me in the comments, whose knife do you still have? Not which brand, whose? Your father's? Your grandfather's? An uncle who handed it to you once and never asked for it back? Where is it right now? We don't just remember the objects, we remember the life around them. Subscribe, because there is a lot more of this country left to remember.